So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like in North Carolina, just to briefly touch on that, and then we'll move into the markets we've been in for a while, like Indianapolis and Orlando and Memphis, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are upcoming. So talk a little bit about what that looks like in North Carolina.
You got it. So again, this is the first of the markets that we've kind of jumped into with this new product, this new model. We had about 6 townhouses that we were developed for our clients that were, I think, basically about the beginning of October is when those came out of the ground, and we actually delivered those to our clients. We're having good traction on the leasing of those properties, which is fantastic. It's kind of coming in where we thought they were going to be, and in some instances even exceeded it in terms of the rents. We actually have a number, we've just, literally within the last couple of weeks, we started to deliver some single-family product. There was a subdivision that we had 5 single-family houses that were built for our clients that have all now started to be closed on. We have some people in the audience that have actually bought some of those houses. We have another 10 townhouses that we are going to be doing as well, and same thing, the Gradens have got a couple of those that they're going to be buying next month, so we're excited for those, and the experience has been fantastic so far. Charlotte's almost really a combo market for us in that we found that the cash flows on these new built homes are great. You know, they're typically on the single family side, they're in the mid 8% cash on cash range, and in the on the townhomes they're kind of in the mid 9s. And the purchase price on the townhomes is generally about $145,000, and on the single family homes they've been about $180,000. The other nice part about Charlotte we've experienced is even though the cash flows are very healthy and good, over the last few years, Charlotte's been experiencing about a 7% increase in appreciation as well. Whereas, you know, compared to some of the lower, you know, markets we do, it's really worked out to be a really nice thing for us. We will have some new product coming available in North Carolina. It's not our normal model where we constantly have houses that are coming into the system. With the developers we're working with, it's basically they're giving us batches to move, and then those are sold, and then the next phase of the development comes up, and those are sold. And so sometimes we have kind of lulls of when we're actively marketing North Carolina, and now is one of those times where we're waiting for the next phase to be priced out and moved to us so we can sell them to our clients. But so far we've had a lot of success in North Carolina.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I like about this is you're not saying an entire subdivision, because there's still, we want to make sure that there's a good healthy mix in the neighborhood of owner-occupied and investment properties.
Right. And that's an important point, and something as we look at some of these relationships with the developers that we have is making sure that we're not overwhelming a subdivision or overwhelming a portion of a neighborhood with all rentals, right? Because that's going to inhibit the ability of it just inhibits, for lack of a better word, the looks of a property in a lot of instances, where there's literally, with renters just don't have the same pride of ownership that a normal home buyer would have. And so we always want to keep a healthy mix of owner-occupied properties to rental properties. And we always like a mix to be around 70 to 30% at a maximum of, or a minimum of owner-occupied properties to rentals.
Brandon, show them where on the map those homes have come out of the ground, just so they kind of know in conjunction to Charlotte.
You got it. So kind of where, and I'll even give you a little bit of a sneak peek of where we're the next developments. We did it actually in our last intensive, but if anyone saw that and saw the videos of me and Bryson kind of driving around up and down Charlotte. But we're actually in one of the, by the way, in almost all of our markets, we're usually out in the suburbs. You know, we're never really close into town. It's either areas that we don't like to be in, or they're usually generally too expensive to really make a lot of sense of rentals. So a lot of bedroom communities, places that are close to where most of the employment is. And in Charlotte, basically where we're at for the most part is up in Salisbury right now. That's where that is. There's quite a bit. The main industrial area of Charlotte is up in this northeast corner. So it's a pretty nice, easy commute for a lot of the people that would be renting there and working at like a, warehouse manager type of job, those kind of things. So it's actually worked out well. We're also, the next developments we're looking at are actually, the next one's going to be most likely in Gastonia, which is just out to the west. Same type of demographics and neighborhood as we're doing in Salisbury. And then the next one is just a little bit closer in on the 85, and not even positive. It's actually going to be a Charlotte address. The name of the community is a little bit different. But we'll see those starting to come out of the ground in 2018, and they'll be single-family homes. It'll be available for our clients as well. But Charlotte as a whole has been fantastic for us. As I said, inventory is tough, as it is everywhere, and that's why we've started to kind of focus on this new build model. But the numbers have been great, and we really expect things to continue to grow throughout the Carolinas, but most specifically in North Carolina.
So Brandon, real quick, if somebody gets a game plan and they're kind of taking a look at, okay, you know what, I like this model, what would be the expectation? How would that process work so that if this is something that would fit their game plan, if that's kind of what they determine with their project manager, just talk them through a little bit. What's that process look like, if you could?
From when they're with a project manager?
Yeah, from the project manager, and they're saying, you know what, there's some North Carolina product that may be coming out of the ground. I think that might be a good fit for my portfolio. Just kind of talk about how that works.
It's a little different process again, because basically in our other markets, we have the asset now. We know where it is. We can put a pro forma together and sell it. With these, we usually get a pretty big run-up before we know, when we're able to start marketing the properties to our buyers, and when the house is actually going to be available and done to purchase. So it seems like we get a good read on which ones we'll be able to sell in the neighborhood, usually about 3 months before the house is actually going to be done. So right around the time when they're actually starting construction. The grading is usually all done, the infrastructure's in place long before that. We usually start marketing the house to our clients about the time they're starting to get built. If anyone's ever been involved with construction or built their own primary home, that there's delays that can occur. And so we do kind of like to let people know up front that, hey, look, as of right now, our expected CO date, which is certificate of occupancy date, is going to be X. But I always say expect X plus 2 or 3 weeks. And it usually seems like that kind of works out. Obviously with this winter and hurricanes and things like that, we had a lot of funky weather that was hitting North Carolina, so a lot of those dates got kind of pushed back. But that's generally the time frame from when someone could say, I'm interested in buying a house in North Carolina, to the time they could typically close. I'm always available for updates during that time. We try to send those out. We try to let people know, here's what's going on with the house and whatnot. But from that point, that's typically, once the house is ready to be purchased, and I think I've gone through this with you guys, Gradens, but if not, here's kind of how it's going to work. But when it gets to the point where a house is actually done, they will actually, there's a number of checks that we still put in place to make sure the house is basically exactly what we're expecting to have happen. The first of which is actually a normal home inspector is sent out to the house by the developer. And that's at their cost. They're trying to do that's their first check, is having an outside home inspector come in and do the inspection. Then we actually send that inspection out to the clients, and that's when we want them to get ready to start scheduling their closing, is that first time they see that first inspection report go out. After that, there's a repeat. After the builder's gone through and made those suggested repairs for the home inspector, another report will go out saying, hopefully, and it always has been so far, all of these items are now done. The home inspector goes back and takes pictures of whatever it was. It's usually touch-up things, paint smudges and things like that. But that's all done. Around that time is when the closing will actually happen. So, and I guess we don't have to go through the process, but that's basically kind of the timeline and how quickly kind of things happen when we're buying specifically in North Carolina.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. So North Carolina model is obviously a little bit different. We're going to kind of transition into more of the traditional. Yeah, do you have a question? Of course.
So you're buying a new property. Do you put in the landscaping and stuff too? Or?
So hold on real quick, just for everybody at home. She asked, when you're buying a new home, is the landscaping and everything like that put in?
Yes. So that's part of the deal that we've worked out with the property managers, is there is a full array of front landscaping that occurs. They do, and there's a specific number of bushes and trees that need to be put in and things like that we go through, but the front landscaping is totally in place. The back yard, they actually do seeding. So they don't sod it like they do the front, but they do put hydro seed down in the back, which is great. North Carolina gets enough rain, so there's no need for irrigation systems in North Carolina. Part of the other thing that we do, and we'll be doing on you guys' houses, Gradens, the HOA fee that we put in the pro forma is actually works. It's not a traditional HOA that's there, but that's actually a maintenance fee for landscaping that we have all throughout the units. And the reason we do that is because all of these units are on one section of a street, And to help maintain how the property looks, we basically have the owners contributing to the property manager a certain amount every month to actually maintain the landscaping for them. And we do that similar to how an HOA would work, similar to how apartment complexes would work, where we're trying to take as much of the responsibility of the outside, how the property looks from those tenants. So far it's worked out great. So
Awesome, great, thank you. So as we kind of transition into some of our markets where it's more of like the traditional approach, what actually might be good, and before I get into that, for those of you that are in the room, we're not going to take a break. So if you want to get a water or a drink, we also have some soda pop and stuff that's just on the other side of the office that you're welcome to, or snacks, or if you need to go to the bathroom, you can get up. It's not a problem. For those of you at home, deal with it. Take the YouTube in the bathroom with you. It's fine. Just don't let us know about it. But so as we kind of transition into talking about more of our, I would call them like our traditional markets, maybe describe just briefly what does that process look like? Because we do have quite a few people online and even some folks in the room that haven't purchased with DFY yet. So you get a game plan. That game plan says it looks like real estate's going to be a good piece of redefining my retirement. They work with the project manager, and then they start to begin to look at various markets. Take us from kind of that point through to getting that property rented out, just as kind of a brief overview of how that process works. Would that be helpful if we went through that? Okay.
So basically, once you've gotten to the point where you've selected a market, right? And each of the markets have different price points they're at, different total out-of-pocket requirements, different return thresholds that they'll have. Some are based more, like I've said, Orlando on appreciation. Some are, more traditional cash flow markets. But once you get to the point where you've selected your market and you're beginning to start looking, or beginning to start shopping, we call it. From that point, basically, you'll be notified by one of our agents in one of the markets that we're talking about. From that point, those agents, and the other part of what we do with Done For You Real Estate is we're very always thinking about compliance and making sure that real estate laws and real estate factors are always being met in the various states that we're in. And in every state, all of the assets always have to be presented by a licensed real estate agent in the market that they're in. And so all of the houses that are at some point in the process of being rehabbed to be sold to our clients are presented by agents in those various markets. So once you've decided on the market you want to be in, you're ready to go. Pre-qualification needs to happen, and that happens with your coach. We make sure that how much you're actually, assuming that people are buying with a loan and not using self-directed IRA funds or cash to purchase. That's a big part of it for us, is making sure that they qualify. That's part of what helps us have the relationship we do with the suppliers that we do, is that by the time one of our clients is ready to purchase a home and is ready to go under contract, they close. So that's a lot easier for suppliers to pump houses into our system, because they know that our clients get to the point where they're going to actually close and they're not just kicking tires and pulling out and wasting people's time. So that helps us a lot on the inventory side. So once you've gotten to that point, the real estate agent starts putting houses in front of our clients. There's a pro forma that we put together, which basically goes through all of the financials of what makes the asset worth buying, basically. It's your guide to showing what the returns are going to be. And we always extrapolate those out about 5 years. The coaches spend quite a bit of time going through that entire process with each of our clients, so they can understand exactly how we're coming up with each of the numbers that we are. I'm available as well. I've spent a lot of time with a lot of the clients in here going through and making sure that they feel really comfortable with that. Did you have something, Bill?
I'm just going to add, when in our first market that we went into, they presented some homes to us, and we said, well, we really trust this. Well, we'll go talk to the real estate agent. We're going to get on and go search for ourselves. So we did that. So we got on and we started doing our own searches for homes. And in fact, we found a couple.
Do you want to hand them the mic?
And in fact, we found a couple of homes that we thought were better than the homes that they were presenting to us. And so we went back and said, we like you guys, but we did our own homework, and we have some properties we think are better. And so and they said, well, okay, that's fine. We appreciate that. Nice to have you involved, but let us run the numbers for you. We have a set of criteria we use. We've done it a lot, and it works for everybody. Before you run off, they didn't say have it half-cocked. um, just let us run the numbers for you. So they did. Well, as you can imagine, they came back, and both these homes would have cost us money every month. They were at a negative cash flow when they ran all the numbers. And that was good for us. We began to have a little more confidence in the system.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So that's really kind of the process, how it works is once they've gone through that with the clients, the agents are in the mix. The coach or the project manager as well as myself is available to go through the pro forma, make sure they understand it. We always recommend people to pull up Google Maps and go through the neighborhood, take a look at it. We want you to feel as comfortable with the process as I am in providing the house to you to buy. And so we feel like with the project managers and ours, that process happens quite a bit, and also the agents in the market to answer those kind of questions. And Bill.
When you get an agent in the market, he's your agent. Even though, done for you is help present the agent to you, they're your agents.
Correct.
We have found in every case that the agents have been a real advocate for us.
That's great.
They have come through big time in terms of saving us money on the purchase.
That's
Right,
great.
great.
Yeah.
Good.
So you get a game plan. You decide that you want to include real estate as a part of your game plan and redefining your retirement. You get pre-qualified. You can go and purchase. You get with your project manager. You begin to shop for the homes in the market that is appropriate for your game plan. You get introduced to an agent who begins to present properties that fit your criteria. Those properties at some point are rehabbed, sometimes before closing, sometimes after closing, and we'll talk you through that process.
Right.
Just depends on the market. And then the leasing process begins. The home gets leased out, and then our DFY client
Right.
begins
One
to-
thing I will add to that, which is always kind of a nice benefit for our clients, is in most of the markets that we're in, whether it's an entity that's managed by one of our companies or an outside supplier that's putting the house into the system, because of the relationship we have with the sellers on these for the most part, as soon as the house is rented, which is usually occurring either before or when the house is under contract to be sold to a client, as soon as the rehab is done, even if it hasn't sold to the new buyer yet, we're putting the house on the market to start getting rented. So a lot of times, by the time the client is actually ready to close on the house, we've got 2-3 weeks of time where the house is actually being marketed for rent, and in a lot of cases, the house has actually got an accepted application or a tenant already in the house prior to the house being sold, which ends up being great because it's just nice to have that little run up before our clients even own the house, where the house is being marketed for rent. And in most of the markets, the average lease time is, it varies per market for sure, but about a month or less is typically the norm in most of the markets we're in from time when it's being rented to move in. So.
And if you want to see that data, I showed you on the DFY-real estate site. If you go look at those property reports, that data is in there. How long did each home take to get leased? And you can kind of see those numbers. Okay, cool. Thank you for going through that. I hope that was helpful.